Hey guys, it's Meal Before Me, and I'm back with another food review. This time we're checking out Sunbasket, which I know some of you really wanted to see. It's a food delivery service offering both meal kits and ready-made options with a focus on healthy recipes. The meals are packed fresh and cold, not frozen, and they deliver to most of the United States except for Alaska, Hawaii, Montana, North Dakota, and parts of New Mexico. Now, according to them, 98% of their produce is USDA certified organic at minimum, all of their meats are antibiotic and hormone-free, and all of their seafood is wild-caught or sustainably raised through fisheries certified by the Marine Stewardship Council, whoever they are, using low-impact fishing methods, whatever that is. So I'm looking forward to trying a new service, and as always, I'm going to walk you through everything from ordering and the unboxing to my taste test in real time. To get started, I went to sunbasket.com, and I quickly want to mention that when I recorded this footage, they were promoting Thanksgiving boxes available for pre-order up until November 16th. Since I won't be posting this review before that, I'm not going to talk about that, but I figured I'd mention it since you may see the ads for it in the video. As usual for these services, there was an offer right on the homepage, and this one was for $90 off across 4 boxes plus free shipping. I didn't see anything else, so I clicked to activate it, and it took me to setup, where it showed me a pop-up for the same offer, only broken down a bit more, with a button to redeem it, which I thought I just did by clicking activate, but whatever, as long as the discount applies, it's fine. Jumping into the setup, it asks if you want meal kits starting at $11.49 per serving, or fresh and ready meals to heat and eat starting at $9.99 per serving. For the sake of this review, I want to try a mix of both, and it does say you can choose from the full menu, though you can't select both options here. If you keep meal kits selected, it asks if you follow any of the listed diets, like paleo, gluten-free, pescatarian, etc. And I think they're either the first service or one of the few I've reviewed with the diabetes-friendly option, which is nice. But like I always say, I have no dietary restrictions, just foods I don't like, so I chose that I don't follow any. It then asks how I prefer to eat, again getting into some choices I either haven't seen before or don't see often, like high fiber and lamb. I don't like a lot of sodium or sugar in my food, so I'll check those boxes, but that's not a hard rule, okay? I'll inhale a milkshake and a cup of noodles if I feel like it. What is a hard rule is that I hate shellfish and refuse to eat it, so I'll be skipping any recipes that include it. Now, to clarify, these selections seem the same as other services where they don't limit your menu, they just influence which recipes you're shown first. So it doesn't really matter what I pick here, I'm just doing it for demonstration. Though notably, if you keep fresh and ready selected instead of meal kits, it doesn't ask for any preferences, it just asks how many meals you want. Sticking with the meal kit option, it asks how many people you're feeding, 2 or 4. You know the joke by now, the only ones reviewing this are me and myself, so I left it at 2 people. It then gives the choice of 2, 3, 4, or 5 meals per week. It's interesting that it defaults to 4 as being the most popular, but I want to try as much as I can, so I'm going with 5. I think 5 meals is the lowest cap I've seen for one of these delivery plans, but sometimes less is more, so I won't hold that against it yet. It then gives you a few choices for logging in to set up your account, including something called Prove It, which, if that's a thing, prove it to me, because I've never heard of it before. You can also just enter your email address and zip code, which is what I did. And what do you know? It then lets you choose your meals instead of making you enter your payment information first. It's almost like literally none of these companies has to do that, but I digress. As suspected, the selections made in the previous screen influenced the Picked For You section where it shows meals that match those preferences, but unlike other services, it actually applied those preferences as menu filters. Thankfully, you can update the filters on the left. Under diet, it has paleo, Mediterranean, vegetarian, gluten-free, carb-conscious, pescatarian, diabetes-friendly, and keto-friendly. Under nutrition, it has high protein, high fiber, low calorie, low added sugar, and low sodium. It also defines each of those filters, which is great. Under excludes, it has lamb, pork, shellfish, fish, beef, poultry, dairy, peanut, tree nuts, sesame, egg, and soy. And under cook time, it has a range of times from 5 minutes up to 50. Since I'm picking my meals for real now, I cleared every filter except the shellfish. Browsing the menu, I noticed a few things. Some meals were labeled pre-prepped, stating that everything for that recipe is chopped and ready to hit the pan, so I assume that any recipe without that label will include more prep work. There were also meals labeled Chef's Table, which are limited edition recipes designed with so-called extra luxe ingredients and innovative flavors. I think I've said in every review so far that I never feel like the premium recipes are worth the extra cost per serving, and I don't feel any differently here. Once you get into 20 bucks and up, I'd rather grab food from a restaurant. It's also worth noting that with pretty much every other service I've tried, all of the meals were the same price per serving except for the premium, though you could change their price by making substitutions or additions to each recipe where available, like swapping out proteins. Here, the meal kit prices vary greatly per serving from $11.49 to $16.59 in my case, with the chef's table meal being $25.99, and there's no customization, which confused me because the full recipe for some of the meals, like this salmon bowl, mentioned your choice of protein. When and how do you get to choose? Maybe you'll figure it out. But the fresh and ready prices differ as well, ranging from $9.99 per serving all the way up to $15.49. I'm really not a fan of that because one of the main things I like about these services is being able to pick a bunch of different things for the same price. It's a convenience factor that sets it apart from restaurants where you expect each dish to be priced differently given the difference in ingredients and preparation. And even they have special menu options where they give you a set price and you get to mix and match, at least at most casual dining chains. So I'm put off by the lack of that here. They also don't have that many choices for the week, with only 18 recipes compared to the typical 20 or 30 plus I'm used to from other services. Though, to be fair, they do have 8 ready-made choices, while other mixed services I've tried had like 3 microwavable meals for the week if I was lucky. And I love the fact that I can click on the cart at any time and see my choices, along with their prices. Getting on with it, after much deliberation and punching of my wallet in the face, I finally settled on the following. For the meal kits, I chose salmon with garlic pesto lentils and Provençal-style veggies, chicken breasts and balsamic glazed veggies with maple goat cheese, Spanish steaks with patatas bravas and bell pepper aioli, and crustless chicken pot pie with mushrooms and carrots. For the fresh and ready, I chose roast chicken with harissa spiced veggies, cauliflower mash and almonds, and the Greek grain bowl with lamb ragu and lemon yogurt sauce. Fair warning, I noticed that one of the ready-made meal options switched to sold out while I was clicking around the menu. Thankfully, it wasn't one that I chose, but it means there's a chance that could happen while you're ordering, so keep that in mind. Now, since my plan is for 5 meals, I was going to do 3 meal kits and 2 fresh and ready, but I wanted more meat variety to test. That's why I added an extra meal kit, which led to my first major gripe. With other services, if I add an extra meal or item, it gets added to the same box. Here, my order was split into 2 boxes. I thought it was because I added a 6th item, but removing one of the fresh and ready choices to bring it back down to 5 still showed 2 boxes. It only went back to 1 box when I removed one of the meal kits. Out of curiosity, I removed both fresh and ready picks and chose another meal kit, meaning that my 5-meal plan now had 5 meals chosen. And that was still 2 boxes. I really hate that because not being based on quantity means you can't tell which combination of meals will cause it to spill over into a second box. All you can do is track the box percentage in the pop-out sidebar, which would be useful if the menu listed each recipe's percentage so you could do the math yourself, but it doesn't. So box 2 is 24% full of something. And that's before mentioning that they only deliver Sunday through Thursday, with the days available to you depending on your location. In my case here in New York, the only options I was given were Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. All days I'll be at work when the boxes, plural, arrive. Now, I know this may sound like an overreaction, but this is the kind of thing that makes me cancel an order. If you're creating more variables for me to worry about than necessary, I'd rather just go to the store and be done with it. But I'm due for another review, and this is the company some of you were curious about, so I persevered, removing the pot pie in hopes that it would drop me back down to 1 box again, and it did. My total is now $117.12, and I chose November 15th for delivery. Proceeding to checkout, I got another pop-up for something I again thought was already included, free shipping, but I clicked to apply it anyway. Here, it shows details of the promo code, which is nice, and I can update the order until Wednesday. With free shipping and the $40 discount applied, my grand total for the order is $77.12, which brings it in line with what I've spent on other reviews. I just got more meals for it in those cases. To finish up, you choose a password and enter your name, address, and phone number. They give you a space to add delivery instructions, but it's only 30 characters, which could be a problem if your needs can't be communicated in cave speak. You can then pay with a credit card or PayPal, more options is mo better, and you can also apply a different promo code at the bottom. Then you press Create Subscription, which is weird to me from a UI standpoint. Like, just have a submit order button like everyone else and reiterate afterwards that you've activated your subscription, but that's just me being picky, we can move on. Future me will be back for the unboxing. In the meantime, if you enjoy my food reviews and want to see more of them, please like this video. It tells YouTube that my channel is worth sharing, and I want to grow it so I can afford to bring you more reviews you'll love. So the box arrived on the 15th as scheduled at around 2 p.m. Luckily, I got home from work early right before that, so I was there to hear the loud smack of the box hitting the landing where the CDL driver threw it instead of setting it down. Here's hoping there was nothing to break. The box is a hefty boy, measuring 12 inches wide, 23 inches long, and 13.5 inches tall. My tracking information didn't list a weight, but it feels like it's at least 20 pounds. And I don't know where your box may ship from, but mine shipped from New Jersey. Opening it up, the lining insulation is a low-density polyethylene filled with reclaimed denim. Each meal kit is in its own bag, which I love because it makes storage and prep so much easier, while the ready-made meals, of course, have their own separate packaging. I did see some moisture, so we'll see when it's time to cook if that's a leak. For now, it's all going in the fridge. Underneath the cardboard separator is the proteins and 2 ice packs, both fully frozen. Full disclosure, I was so exhausted from work that I laid down for a quick nap after bringing the box inside and woke up 5 hours later. So the fact that everything still felt ice cold to the touch despite sitting in a warm house that long means it was pretty well insulated. Now, there were no recipe cards in the box, and even pulled everything out and checked under the lining just in case they slid underneath. There was a voucher for Naked Wines and a little welcome to Sunbasket booklet, but no cards. So I checked the meal kit bags, and sure enough, the recipe cards were in there because they were tiny, which I like, though you may not if you want something large enough to put in a binder. After seeing the size of the box and what was in it, I'm not sure why I would have needed 2. They definitely could have put one more meal kit in there, but that ship has sailed. So enough with the unboxing, because you know the question on all of our minds is, how does it taste? And after my nap turned full on sleep, I'm pretty hungry, so let's get these meals cooked. To the table! I'm starting with the fresh and ready meals because I'm tired, and I won't be transferring them to a plate. Instead, I'm going to weigh them to see just how much food I'm getting for the price. And as always, I'll be rating each recipe by taste, smell, texture, and repeatability, meaning would I eat it again? Up first, we've got the roast chicken with harissa spiced veggies, mashed cauliflower, and almonds. It weighs 13.8 ounces, including the packaging. Just to compare, I checked my Cook Unity review to see what the weights were on those meals, and the ones I tried ranged from around 12.5 to 17.5 ounces. So this is at least within that range, but this cost $13.69 without the discount, while all of my Cooked Unity meals were $11.69 without the discount, regardless of weight. But back to Sunbasket, the packaging for both fresh and ready meals is the same size, 6.5 inches long, about 5 inches wide tapered, and 2.5 inches deep. I don't know if that's the case for all of them, or if I just happen to pick 2 that match. There's a best by date printed on the side. This one says November 17th. It has the nutrition label on the bottom, courtesy of a printer that needs maintenance, and it's 500 calories, keeping in mind that one package is 1 serving. It has cooking instructions for both the microwave and oven, but since speed and convenience are the highlight of ready-made meals, I'm always going to review them using the microwave because that's how I think most people will eat them. And their cook times are based on a 1000 watt microwave, while I'll be using my 700 watt Kenmore that has never let me down. I'm not going to read all of the ingredients, but you can see them on the website since I always link to the recipes I try whenever I can. Now, I want to point something out before getting to the tasting. When browsing the menu, many recipes state that they're lightly seasoned, so you should add salt and pepper to your heart's content. Not once in any of my reviews have I added my own ingredients or spices, so even if I recommend doing that here, I won't fault Sunbasket for it because they stayed up front that you should season it to taste. I just wanted to mention that because a common complaint I see about Sunbasket is that their food is bland. So take that feedback with a grain of salt because they might not be using any. Let's pop this in the microwave. Alright guys, you've been here before, you know the deal. This is the crappy audio portion of the video because I am doing this in real time and do not care about where the microphone is. But I went ahead and heated this up according to the instructions, which said to get the meat to the recommended temperature of 165 degrees, and of course that's Fahrenheit because we are in the US, which they said would take about 3 to 5 minutes. And as is always the case with these reviews, when they give me a time range for any of these recipes, just for the sake of being consistent, I always pick the extreme of that range. So 3 to 5 minutes means I did it for 5 minutes. Now, if you're concerned about food safety, you of course can go ahead and use a meat thermometer, which I did in this case just to demonstrate the point. It was like in the 170s or 180s. It was like well over what it needs to be. Okay, so I think you'll be fine just following the instructions. I don't think you actually need a thermometer, but if you want to be extra safe, you can go ahead. But yeah, the only instructions it had was that you had to peel this back a little bit. So That is a little bit easier than what was going on with Cook Unity, where there were, sauces or other things that you had to remove before heating it up. But really, is that an issue? No. So we're going to get right into the rankings, starting off with the smell. I mean, it leans more into a veggie smell, but also it's not bland. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 for whiff right out of the gate. And another thing I want to mention that's not really a part of the ranking, but it's just something to consider. If I'm going to be reviewing ready-made meals where I'm going to eat them out of the packaging, I really care about how well it holds up when you microwave it. And I have to say, this is some sturdy crap here, okay? I don't think this is going to be leaking. I would flip it over, but that would be dumb. The food would fall out. So we've got some of this sauce. Now again, we've got the veggies, which seem to be mostly on the bottom. Looks like we've got one piece of chicken here. We've got the sliced little almond slivers. And then we've got the cauliflower mash all underneath, which to be honest, I like because that means it's soaking up all of that delicious flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to pull the chicken apart with the fork. The chicken definitely looks juicy. You can see a little bit of the moisture there. And then I think I've got some of the mash. But let's see, I tried to get a little fork full of everything. Let's have a bite. There's a little bit of heat in there, on the back end, but not anything that's uncomfortable. Let me just taste this cauliflower mash by itself. Okay, yeah, flavor definitely wasn't coming from that. Was it the carrot? Let me try that. Oh, actually, so the carrot is where oh my God, whoa. So I guess that's the harissa that's giving me the heat. But the flavor, not that the carrots don't have flavor, the cauliflower mash didn't, but let me see, was it the chicken? The chicken is definitely lightly seasoned, but not to the point where I feel like I have to add salt to it. So I don't think I would in any universe refer to this as bland, but I'm gonna go to texture because that was the first thing I thought of. I'm gonna try to open that up a little bit so you can see in there. But yeah, I think the texture of the meat, it is not the juiciest, doesn't necessarily come off that well, and it does appear stringy, though, when you eat it, it's fine. It's the carrots. These carrots I feel like they're fighting me. To be able to get them on there. So taking that with the fact that the cauliflower mash is actually really smooth, I'm going to give the whole thing maybe a 4 out of 5 for texture. Again, I think that this, despite them saying that they seasoned it lightly, is actually seasoned decently when you take everything into account. If you were to sit here and try to eat each thing individually, then the carrots would be unbalanced. The mash, I almost said mashed potatoes. You are not that. You know what you are. You're a lie, but you're also bland without your friends to help you. And the meat would just be kind of again, basic, so-so meat. So I'm going to give it for flavor a 4 out of 5, which leaves us with the last one, repeatability. Would I eat it again? I'm going to say no. Not because it's bad, but because it's basic. It wasn't and I've said this before, I was kind of spoiled with Cook Unity in terms of just the sheer quantity of choices they had for recipes. So I feel like with the same amount of food, I could get something that has just a more interesting, more varied flavor profile to it that makes me feel like it's not just something I could have just, whipped up in 2 minutes, in my own skillet. But the portion size, I think this is fine because again, for the ready-made meals, each one of these is just 1 serving. And I think this is actually a decent amount just to have a tiny little lunch. So again, I reiterate, don't take the fact that I would not eat this again to mean that there was anything wrong with it. I would just be looking for something more interesting. Time to move on.
Next is the Greek grain bowl with lamb ragu, fresh arugula, and lemon yogurt. Its best by date is November 20th. It's 490 calories and weighs 14.6 ounces.
Food! I'm gonna have to stop doing these intros because at some point I'm gonna run out of them, I'm gonna repeat it, and you're gonna call me out. And you know what? You're gonna ruin my day, okay? Now, full disclosure, I literally just started recording this. I peeled off the top and then I realized that I hadn't actually hit record yet. So that's why you don't see the plastic on it. But the heating instructions for this were exactly the same as the other one, 3 to 5 minutes. So I heat up for 5 minutes. Now I am gonna jump immediately into the ranking by starting with the fact that I'm glad I'm not tripophobic because
You know how like sometimes there are sauces and other things going on in foods where some of it will sink and it'll create these little pockets and like the holes are clustered together? That's what I'm seeing here when I first took the plastic off. And I said, you know what? I may not be trypophobic, but I still don't want to look at that, and I don't want you to either. So I just went like this to just nip that nonsense in the bud. So this was the one I was a little concerned about because it does have lamb and it does have lemon. It has like a lemon yogurt sauce. But I have to say, for the ranking, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 for whiff. Because as soon as I opened the microwave, like, and even before that, it had this beefy smell to it, but, you know, like with a little gamey twang, I guess you could put it, and a little something else on top of it that I don't necessarily like, which I think is the tomatoes, because I'm not really a fan of just tomatoes sitting in things. Like, I don't like how they smell. I even feel like I can smell the creaminess of whatever little bit of kind of yogurt sauce was in here. But overall, I think I'm gonna go high. I think I'm gonna be a little generous here and give it a 5 out of 5 for whiff. Now, for everything else though, we're actually gonna have to taste it. When I'm doing these reviews, I do want to get at least one recipe that's outside of my comfort zone, and this would definitely count. Of course, this is the Greek grain bowl, so we've got some grains in there. You know, I wouldn't be mad in terms of portion size if this is what I got. But for $13 or whatever it was, is this good? Well, remains to be seen, okay? My mouth will tell us. Let me just taste it. Yes is the answer, my friends. This is really good. So there's definitely a beefiness to this. I know I was being lazy and said I didn't want to actually read the ingredients aloud, and I'm actually not going to, but I am going to look at it. White beans are great because I love beans in general. I love the texture. I love what they add to everything. They make everything taste more substantial. But I do see that it says that it has Sunbasket's beef stock. So that may be that beefiness that I'm tasting. And I feel like that really brings it together. This is really good. And I don't even see that much lamb, you know, but it's definitely in there. And of course, because all of this is just a sort of hodgepodge, like, the texture is great. I mean, I could just rapid fire this one. The flavor, 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5 for texture. I tend to shy away from things that have grains in them because, funny enough, grains are sometimes grainy. But with this, the grains don't stand out. Like, it's very reminiscent of if I were just eating rice. Because the thing I like about rice is it kind of soaks everything else up without losing its own character. It can be friends with everybody without faking its personality. That's what I like about rice. And then we've got this, which it looks like capers, but I can neither confirm nor deny because I refuse to look at the ingredient list again. Which means, for repeatability, will I get this again? Yeah, I definitely think you could just take this and, you know, plop this on a plate, you know, with a little bowl, make it look fancy, and it'll look like you did something. All right, the other one didn't really look like you did something. It would look like your kid did something, okay? So yeah, 5 out of 5 across the board for this one. Let's just move on to the next one.
Moving on to the meal kits, I'm breaking out everyone's favorite 11-inch plate to give you an idea of what the portions look like. First up, we've got the Spanish steaks with Patatas Bravas and bell pepper aioli. It came with 10.7 ounces of beef top sirloin steak, 1 large yellow onion, 15 ounces of potatoes, 1 bell pepper, garlic herb blend, sweet smoked paprika, crushed tomatoes, red wine vinegar, and mayo. Time to cook. Meat and potatoes, meat and potatoes, meat and potatoes, what a good meal. I had to roast the potatoes, which had some seasoning for it. Then I had to make the steaks. Then I had the separate aioli that I had to mix together. And then there was the final sauce, which I guess was the Patatas Bravas sauce. And then top it with as much aioli as I liked. Now I used half of the aioli because for this portion of the video, the amount of the ingredients that I received were for 2 servings. And when I cook everything up, I take 1/2 of it, put it away for later, and then I take the other half and I plate it for the review. So this here, this heaping helping of deliciousness is 1 serving, okay? But you know what? I don't want to talk anymore because I think I already know what the verdict was going to be for this one. Also, you know, one of the reasons I like using plastic utensils for these reviews, besides the fact that I don't want to wash stuff and I have a million of these, is that especially when you're dealing with meat, if it can hold up to your standard run-of-the-mill plastic, it's probably not going to break your teeth. That's all I'm saying.
Because the steak actually just had a little bit of that garlic herb seasoning, there was like nothing really else going on with it. I'm gonna just try that by itself first, and then I'm gonna go into the flavor ranking like immediately. So I'm just gonna take this very tiny piece right here. And you can see very, very juicy, and it is cooked exactly how I like it. I do not like my meat any redder than this. So I'm just gonna taste this. Yeah, and I mean, I already knew it was gonna be good. I mean, it's beef. I'm just gonna take another little piece. This is gonna end up being my dinner. This is why I wanted to do this one first, because I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure this is gonna be amazing. We all know what beef is, so really the star of this dish is gonna be the Patatas Bravas. So we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna taste the potatoes first, just so I can see what that sauce tastes like. Let me just taste this. That's good. That sauce is like, despite half of it being made up of the crushed tomatoes, it doesn't taste like tomato sauce. It has a more muted, savory taste to it. That could be because it's basically that with a little bit of water and then the smoked paprika. That's what that is. And I can feel the paprika on my tongue. I can taste that smokiness. But now let's taste the aioli. All right. Yeah, I can get this one done so fast. This might be the fastest ranking I've ever done in any of my reviews. Flavor, 5 out of 5. Texture, 5 out of 5. Whiff, 5 out of 5. Repeatability, would I eat it again? Absolutely. This is another one of those recipes where if it's on the menu, I would always reserve one spot for it. It's not complicated to make, and yet it has a lot of flavor. Like I said, the texture is perfect. Like the texture of the potatoes is great. They're firm, but they're still buttery like on the inside. The onions are nice and tender. And that aioli, I mean, aioli is for me like mayo in its final form anyway. Like, if you want to see how tender this is, I guess I can maybe try to break a piece for you. But you see, I barely had to even tug that. It was just like, oh, you want me to separate? Yeah, okay. So I would endorse this recipe. I think it's good, but you know what? We got 2 more to go, so we got to move on.
Next, we have the salmon with garlic, pesto, lentils, and Provençal-style vegetables with sustainably raised salmon fillets. It came with 10.7 ounces of salmon, 3 ounces of cherry tomatoes, zucchini, squash, fresh basil, shallot garlic confit, 8.7 ounces of French green cooked lentils, and roasted garlic pesto. Now you'll notice I didn't dump it out like the last one because it was the bag that was wet on the bottom when I opened the box, so I was afraid of a leak, but everything inside was fine, so it was probably just condensation. Let's get this made.
Okay. All right, so we got this one I want to be a little careful with because I decided to put the lentils in its own little container on the plate instead of having it just swimming around like it was, you know, when they plated it, because I don't want to deal with that. Now this one was very quick to cook because the lentils were already fully cooked. You just had to heat them up. So by the time I was done with the salmon, everything else was ready to go. But I'm gonna go ahead and taste one of the veggies first, just because there was that, I don't know if it was that confit that I had to put on it, that shallot and garlic confit. So I just wanted to see if that comes through. I mean, sort of. I feel like I could have had more of that, but also, like, I'm not a fan of cherry tomatoes. The whole thing where it's like, you get it and it bursts in your mouth. I'm like, yeah, but it's bursting with flavor I don't like. It also makes things taste a little watery. You know, when they burst, I feel like I lose some of the flavor of whatever it was in. But the star of the show is going to be the salmon, and I think the lentils, just because there's so much of it. So with the salmon, you were just supposed to dump the pesto on top and then bake it that way. Let's get a piece of the salmon. And just the way that this is lit, the salmon looks a little less roasted because of this roasted pesto that's just sitting on top of it. So don't think that between that and the lighting that it's not cooked, because it's actually cooked quite nicely. But I'm gonna go ahead and have a tasty taste. Oh, good God. Okay, that's good. That is good. Oh my God. I'm gonna get into the ranking in like 2 seconds. I'm just gonna taste some of the lentils, but oh my Lord. And I have a little spoon that I'm gonna use just to taste the lentils. And I'm just gonna take a hearty spoonful. Okay. I mean, it reminds me of kind of like a black bean sauce. The one thing about this recipe before I get into my ratings is I feel like the lentils are out of place. You know, like I feel like if it were just the vegetables and the salmon, that would be enough. That would be perfect. So this just feels like something extra, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's bad in terms of the recipe if, you know, removing the lentils from this would make it cheaper, which I assume it would, and it would still be amazing, so they could do that. But since you have it, I do think that it's the kind of thing where you can just decide to have lentils by itself as like a little lunch thing. Maybe you have that and you have a little crust of bread, but that's just me. With this, I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 across the board. And the smell, I think, that I like so much is coming from the salmon and this pesto and the fresh basil. Now, I don't really think the garlic thing, the little shallot, whatever, that I had to put on the vegetables did much, but this roasted garlic pesto, this is some good stuff. So obviously, repeatability, would I eat this again? Absolutely. And I think that, you know, despite feeling like the lentils could be removed, I am gonna view it as more of a bonus where I feel like you're getting 2 meals in one. I'm feeling like for the meal kit, well, you know what? No, I'm gonna save my full thoughts for the end. Let's just move on.
And finally, we have chicken breasts and balsamic glazed vegetables with maple goat cheese. It came with 11.8 ounces of boneless, skinless chicken, 8.6 ounces of Brussels sprouts, a carrot that got in a fight, 1 medium red onion, crumbled goat cheese, balsamic vinegar, dry roasted hazelnuts, and maple syrup. While I do love the little jars these ingredients come in because I can clean them up and use them to store other things, it opens the door for leaks if the jars aren't closed tightly enough when they toss it in, which it seems was the case here. Either that or it got all over the outside of the jar when they were putting it in and they didn't bother to clean it off. Either way, it's not a good thing. But let's cook this up.
Oh, I got a big old plate of chicken. All right, so this is the last one. I gotta stop doing those intros because I swear, like I said, I'm gonna just run out of them and then it's gonna be annoying to me that I ran out of them. But we have got perhaps the simplest dish of all. What's simpler than little boneless chicken breasts with a little roasted veggies in a balsamic vinegar maple syrupy glaze with some toasted hazelnuts on top and, you know, sitting in a bit of goat cheese, which is the part that I'm most excited about because I love goat cheese. If you notice, it looks like there's no char except on this like one piece. That was my fault because it had a beautiful char on that side, and then when I took it out of the pan to rest, for some stupid reason I put it on the tray with the beautiful brown side down, and after I let it rest and I went to cut it, I continued to cut it with that gorgeous side down. So when I flipped it back over, it was like all of that beautiful browning, you didn't see it anymore, and it's because it was sitting in its juices and it basically kind of soaked it up and whatever. Point is, I normally would have this looking very gorgeous and very charred, but I literally pretty much rubbed the char off. But this is not about looks, it's about taste. I don't even need to taste the goat cheese, but with the goat cheese, they did have you like add a little bit of water and then mix in some of that maple syrup to make this smooth cream. So that is going to have a little bit of sweetness to it. But the interesting thing I was going to say about the chicken and why this is so simple is that you were really just cooking this. It didn't have any special seasoning for that. It was just, hey, salt, pepper, and put it in a pan. So I'm going to go ahead and taste that first. And as you can see, it is incredibly juicy. So I'm just going to taste that, but I'm not going to give my response for that because really it's going to be this stuff since this is just boneless chicken. I'm going to try it anyway. Now, what I'm most curious about is that glaze, because if you're going to do a glaze, I probably would have preferred reducing it like in a pan so that it would actually have like a glaze-like texture. Instead, you were supposed to pour it on the vegetables for, the last 2 minutes of it roasting. So I feel like it didn't actually glaze anything. It's still kind of watery. I'm gonna take this because it looks like it has quite a bit of it on there. I'm a sucker for anything balsamic and, I really don't like maple syrup, but I feel like in the past it is blended very well with other things. So hopefully that'll happen here. All right. I like the flavor, but again, I feel like it would be a lot stronger and it would come through a lot more if it were actually a thicker glaze. Let's jump into the rating. For flavor, the chicken is delicious. The goat cheese is delicious. And that quote unquote glaze
is also delicious. I just wish it were actually a glaze and not like basically a liquid. The issue I have is with the Brussels sprouts, but let me go ahead and eat this. Just this is so good. Okay, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 for texture because of the Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts, but the thing is, if they're not cooked exactly how I want, it just doesn't blend well with other food because I feel like I'm just chomping through layers of stuff and it's just not a pleasant mouthfeel. So that's why I'm docking this for texture. The chicken itself is perfect. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. The rest of the vegetables are perfect, like the carrots are perfect. You know, the onions, like the red onions, which I love, they're also perfect. All of this is perfect. It's the Brussels sprouts. Like I don't like the texture. It's too hard. And again, it's like I can feel each individual layer of the Brussels sprouts and I don't like that at all. But also, I ended up docking the flavor and saying 4 out of 5 instead of 5 out of 5 because I don't feel Brussels sprouts are a good vehicle for soaking things up that are watery, you know, like broths and things like that. Like not in this context, not if you're just gonna dump it on, you know, while you're roasting it. And because of that, I feel like when I ate the Brussels sprouts, less of all of the flavors came through. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Brussels sprouts in this. I feel like I would have liked any other green vegetable in this case. So yeah, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 for texture, 4 out of 5 for flavor. For whiff, you know, I'm giving it maybe a 3 out of 5. But this could just be me. I feel like hazelnuts have more flavor when they're not toasted. At least they have more of the hazelnut flavor. I feel like after you toast hazelnuts, then they just have that dry nut flavor. So it's not like I'm smelling a wonderful layer of hazelnuts with this. I don't smell that at all. I just smell vegetables. I don't even smell like balsamic or anything really. So yeah, 3 out of 5 for whiff. So with all of that said, repeatability, would I eat this again? I would say no. To me, it's really not worth getting again. And I'm not going to say that this is ending on a low note because this wasn't 5 across the board, because I love goat cheese so much that I'm just going to like slather this in it. I'm not going to leave it here. I'm just going to mix everything in and I'm going to gobble it up when I eat it probably for lunch tomorrow. And I will be in goat cheese heaven. Getting into my final thoughts, I love the simplicity and clarity of the website and the ordering process. I can't say enough how much I appreciate not having to enter my personal information until I was ready to check out. I had no issues with the quality of the ingredients, I appreciate the organic focus, and the recipes did a lot with very little. I think it's the most expensive service I've tried so far, but like I always say, they all cost more than what I spend on groceries anyway, so you might find the price right up your alley. That said, I don't think the fresh and ready meals are worth it relative to the meal kits unless you're getting the cheapest ones. I just can't see myself spending the same amount on something I'm popping in the microwave as something I'm cooking from scratch, even if it tastes good. And I don't talk about how long it takes me to make these meal kits because then I'd have to keep track of that every time and I don't feel like it. But I'll say here that each one was quick because everything was ready to go by the time the one thing that needed the oven was done. So there was no fussing around with cooking in multiple stages like some meal kits I've had before where recipes took 40 minutes plus. These were 10 to 25 minutes. For everything else, they do have a market, which you don't see when ordering because you get funneled towards their plans. They show it to you afterward, which normally annoys me, but nothing in their market interested me anyway. I also noticed when browsing the site after placing the order that there's a section at the bottom of the account page for documents, including an extreme temperature waiver. I'll put that up on the screen so you can see what it says. So overall, I think Sunbasket is pretty great as long as you're fine with the price point. I'm not sure where I'd place it compared to other services. I still think HelloFresh has the best market by a mile, but all of these services have been decent so far in terms of meal kits. I do have one thing that remains to be seen with Sunbasket, and that's how they handle cancellations. Because I was so used to the timing of how these services deliver and charge that I missed the fact that Sunbasket had already locked in my next box before I'd even gotten the first one. I'm probably going to edit and publish this before I hear back about that, so I'll update my pinned comment to let you know how it goes. Either way, let me know what your experience has been with Sunbasket. A link to their site is in the box, and if you haven't already, feel free to leave a comment on the post in my community tab about services you want me to try next, or any grocery brands or snacks, because I will be doing more grocery item reviews, I just haven't had time. Since this will be my last food service review of the year, I just want to say that I really appreciate all the engagement and feedback I've gotten, because it means my videos are accomplishing exactly what I set out to do with this channel, which is provide people with detailed reviews they can trust. Cost. With that, have a wonderful Thanksgiving if it hasn't passed already. Enjoy the holiday season. Thanks so much for watching MBM, and I'll see you snackies when I'm backies.